Since childhood, Steve's dream was to explore mines and discover new things. But due to the restriction of children entering mines, his dream could never be fulfilled. In reality, Steve was very creative from his childhood, and he used to make something or the other from the things around him. Then, as he grew up, Steve finally decided to fulfill his childhood dream by sneaking into the mines. There, after digging, he found an orb and an earth crystal. As soon as he puts the orb into the earth crystal, a portal opens up in front of him. Steve crosses a portal and reaches a different world called Overworld. In reality, Steve had entered the world of the Minecraft game. The Overworld was incredibly beautiful, and Steve could easily create anything he thought of, so he decided to stay there and build a paradise-like world for himself. There, he met a wolf dog named Dennis, whom he made his pet, and continued to build his world. Steve loved Dennis more than his own life. A lot of time passed like this, and then one day, Dennis discovered a strange-looking door deep in the woods. Upon reaching there, Steve opened a portal, and in the process of following Dennis, he also crossed the portal and entered a different dimension of Minecraft, known as the Nether. The Nether was devoid of happiness, beauty, and creativity, resembling a kind of hell ruled by the piglin queen, Malgosia. The demonic queen captured Steve and Dennis and took away the orb from them. In reality, she had been wanting to obtain the orb for herself to destroy the overworld. So, Steve convinced Dennis that he had to save the orb to save the overworld. When everyone fell asleep, Steve, with Dennis' help, escaped from captivity, stole the orb, and handed it over to Dennis. And Dennis, with the orb, manages to escape the Nether and return to Earth, where he hides the orb in Steve's house, under his bed. This separates the orb and crystal, causing the overworld portal to close. Fast forward to the present time. In the 1980s, Garrett, a champion of the Hung City game, and also known as the Garbage Man, runs a video game store to make ends meet. However, his economic situation is not ideal, and he receives an eviction notice for his store. To earn money and save his store, Garrett attends an auction to buy abandoned storage containers, where he discovers that one of the containers holds a 1978 popular game, Cosmos. Upon hearing the name Cosmos, Garrett's ears perk up, and he expects to make a good profit from it. In his excitement, Garrett buys a storage container for an exorbitant amount and hands over the check to the auctioneer. Eager to inspect his purchase, Garrett opens the Cosmos box, only to find junk, the orb, and the crystal with nothing else of value. The items, in fact, belong to Steve's long-abandoned house. Garrett's remaining money is now gone, and he's devastated. As he drives home with the orb and crystal in the Cosmos box, his car's engine fails, leaving him stranded. Overwhelmed, Garrett gets out of the car and screams in frustration. At the same time, Natalie, a girl, arrives in the city with her younger brother Henry to fulfill their mother's final wish. Henry was an extremely intelligent and creative boy who always brought his imagination to life through drawings. Upon arriving in the city, they met Don, a real estate agent, who handed Natalie the keys to the house provided by her employer, a chip manufacturing company. The next morning, Henry visited Garrett's game store before heading to school, where he admired the items on display. In his first class, Henry's art teacher asked the students to draw a still life of an orange and a banana, while the other children focused on drawing the fruits as they appeared. Henry's imagination ran wild, and he added a jetpack to the back of the banana. His teacher explained that in still life drawing, the subject should be depicted as it is. The other students began to tease Henry, but he took his drawing to the next level by actually building a jetpack and attaching it to a skeleton. He then took it to the playground to test it in front of everyone. Just as Henry's jetpack is about to take off, a mischievous boy cuts one of its wires, causing it to lose control and crash into some people from the chip manufacturing company, breaking the device. Henry's vice principal, Marilyn, is furious and asks him to call his guardian, instead of calling his sister Natalie. Henry contacts Garrett and offers him $30 to pose as his uncle and come to the school. Garrett agrees and arrives promptly. Back at the game store, Henry re-examines his jetpack's calculations and realizes they were correct all along. However, feeling frustrated, he discards his entire diary. His attention is then drawn to the orb and crystal and out of curiosity, he inserts the orb into the crystal. As soon as they combine, the orb pulls Henry into the old mines. Meanwhile, Natalie becomes worried when Henry doesn't return from school. Don tracks Henry's phone using Natalie's mobile and discovers that he's gone to the old mines. She accompanies Natalie to the mines to search for him. Superscript 1. When the four meet, the portal pulls them into the overworld. They're amazed by the new world. A villager named Nitwit enters the portal and goes to Earth. Meanwhile, Dennis returns to the overworld. The Queen of Piglin, Malgotia, learns the orb is back and offers Steve a deal. If he brings her the orb, she'll spare his dog Dennis' life and free him from captivity. In the overworld, Natalie wants to go back, but suddenly it's night and skeleton monsters attack. Henry discovers he can create things in this world and builds a wooden fort to protect himself, Natalie, and Don. However, the orb and crystal are left outside. Garrett joins them, running toward the fort to escape the monsters. Garrett picks up the orb, but a demon breaks the crystal with an arrow. He manages to enter the fort with the orb, but zombies follow them. Before the others can react, the zombies try to kill the four by pushing them off the fort. Steve arrives and saves them by killing the zombies and skeleton demons. He explains that the broken crystal means they can't return to their world. However, Steve tells them there's a way to find another crystal in the woodland. Steve makes a deal with them. He'll help them find the crystal, and in return, they'll give him the orb. To prepare for their journey, Steve takes them to a village to make weapons. At the village, Henry and Garrett learn how to craft weapons. Garrett gets an Elder Pearl, which Steve explains can teleport him to a different location. However, Garrett ignores Steve's warning and throws the pearl, which teleports him back. Henry teaches Garrett and Steve how to make a pressure gun. Steve is impressed by Garrett's accidental creation of a strange canteen. Meanwhile, a treasure map hints at a hidden location. As they prepare to leave, piglins attack the village. The group fights back, but Garrett, Natalie, Don, and Steve are different from the others. Steve takes Henry and Garrett to the village wall and shows them how to fly using wings. They soar over the hills, heading towards the woodland mansion. As they fly, Steve pushes Henry, who flaps his wings and stays aloft. Steve and Garrett follow, and they all crash land on a hill. Steve explains that the piglins are Malgotia soldiers, driven by hatred and a desire to destroy creativity. Steve reveals that he needs the orb to save his dog Dennis' life. Meanwhile, Natalie finds a wolf dog and gives it a bone, noticing that it smells like Dennis. As they journey through the woodland, they encounter obstacles. Steve and the others try to escape by mining through a wall, but the great hawk blows it up. They quickly get into a cart to escape, but Garrett gets stuck in copper ore. As they escape the mine, Henry blows it up, killing creepers. Garrett is upset with Henry, feeling that his greed almost got him killed. Henry comforts Garrett, explaining that he's not alone because he's his friend. When they reach the woodland mansion, Steve briefs them on the layout. The first floor is inhabited by axe-wielding killers, the second floor by evokers, and the third floor by Endermen who protect the Earth Crystal. Steve warns them to avoid eye contact with the Endermen. To distract them, Henry starts playing music, and they sneak past killers on the first floor. However, they're confronted by an axe-wielding murderer on the second floor. Henry kills him and continues to the third floor. There, they face a chicken jockey, which Garrett fights. Henry helps, and they eventually find the Earth Crystal. However, Henry becomes confused and feels like a loser, thinking that everyone considers him a failure. Despite this, he rallies and eliminates the Enderman, saving the day. After killing the Enderman, Henry gets an Ender Pearl with teleportation powers. The trio exits the woodland mansion, crosses a bridge, and obtains the crystal. However, they're ambushed by Malgotia and her piglins. In the ensuing battle, the bridge is blown up and Henry and Steve fall to ground, fainting from the shock. When Steve wakes up, he finds Natalie and Don Malgotia, who activates her portal and summons her army. Henry, Steve, Natalie, and Don prepare to fight to retrieve the orb. Henry and Natalie create iron golems to aid them, but Malgosia's army is too strong. The Great Hawk joins the battle, and Steve confronts Malgotia. Henry uses the Ender Pearl to teleport behind Malgosia's army and reaches the orb. However, the Great Hawk intercepts him, and Henry drops the orb. Just as it's about to hit the ground, Garrett reappears and saves Henry by catching him in midair. It turns out that Garrett had survived the explosion by using a piglin's air balloon. After the battle, Garrett destroys the portal, closing it and ending the darkness. With the piglins and zombies defeated, Malgosia loses her strength, but she tries to kill Steve before dying. With Malgosia defeated, Steve is cured, and he hands Dennis over to Don. Natalie suggests that Steve uses magic to spread positivity in the world, changing his mind about stopping. Steve decides to return to the real world with the others. Back in the city, Garrett's store becomes a hit, and Steve becomes his business partner. Don leaves his job to pursue his dreams, and Natalie opens a self-defense academy. Henry wears his jetpack to school, becoming a cool and favorite student. The movie ends on a happy note, with everyone living their best lives.